So, आज जो हम डिस्कशन करना चाह रहे हैं ना आपसे वो है in the context of the historical perspective of the current state of affairs. Why Pakistan is the way Pakistan is. And what we want to know is के pre-partition and post-partition में जो मतलब the way you saw it, because you were 18 when you came here, right? So उस time से पहले और उसके बाद, so I want to have an understanding of why we were the way we were and how we have progressed to 2017. When you say the Sir Syed mindset, what do you exactly mean by that? Because uske baare mein I think we have a lot of confusion. We have generally grown up reading with at least our school textbooks have taught us a very different perspective of Sir Syed. And why is he so important in all of this? And why is he that उसके बाद से हम जहाँ खड़े हुए हैं उसमें उनका जो भी एक जो उनका रोल था या जो कुछ था, and how it has affected us today, एक तो मैं उस पर क्लियर नहीं हूँ, और दूसरा ये कि आज का जो करंट हमारा the sum total of our mindsets जो है उसकी भी नेचर के बारे में मैं इतना एटलीस्ट मैं इतना क्लियर नहीं हूँ कि if I were to elaborate upon it with the right kind of words and the right kind of description, so I am so a bit unclear about it. If there is a possibility to sum it up of what we are today.
To answer your question, it is important to keep in mind the situation that existed when Sir Syed began his work and his mission. Sir Syed was a Muslim, if I may say, a learned Muslim, and once the British rule was established in India and the battles had been fought between mainly the Muslim rulers in the center and in the provinces, once the military and the political battles had been fought out and the British invaders, they succeeded, they were victorious and established. After that, the British found that now there were no more kings left or no more military opposition left, and they found the majority of the population were Hindus and a large minority were Muslims. Keep in mind that most of the battles that the British fought and hurdles and obstacles they had to overcome were Muslims largely. They were the main opposition to the British. So it was logical that the British should look to the Hindu population for support after they had established their rule. So the British did neglect the Muslims. In the new setup, the British setup, it was they who controlled the services, the government, and also the economy. So they were in a position to give preference to one community, and they gave preference to the Hindus because they had not fought against the British. And the British did look upon Muslims with suspicion because they had been opposing them earlier. So the British did not feel as comfortable with Muslims as within the Hindu population, and so they favored them. Their relationships, in their political thinking, and also in their jobs and in the economy generally, it was a part of their policy to keep the Muslims backward and outsiders to the new order, the British order. So this is the background. This is what Sir Syed observed and found. Being a Muslim, he wanted to change that. Now, there was no vision of Sir Syed to overthrow the British. The British government had become a reality, and their domination had become a reality. He realized that a community which has to prosper and survive has to do that with the cooperation and patronage of the British government. Quite simply, He found that the British were ignoring the Muslim community and suspecting them, their loyalties. So Sir Syed came to the conclusion that that has to be changed. And he addressed his thinking and his message to the Muslims primarily. I don't think Sir Syed addressed the Hindu community at all. And on that context, Sir Syed's message to the Muslim community was that you have to find your space and your success within the fold of the British rule. So his solution was for the Muslims that they should make themselves acceptable to the British. His principal theme was that Muslims have to compete with the Hindu community for getting acceptance and favors from the British government. So his message to them was to accept the British rule and to be loyal to it. And then within the framework of that loyalty and that commitment, you have to improve your situation financially and politically. Politically, you have to become acceptable to the British so that the British will rely upon you. And then the next factor in his thinking was that to achieve this, the Muslim population must learn English and educate themselves, not only the language, but the ideas and the thinking which was in the English language. To put it simply, to be anglicized. He did not address this message to the Muslim peasantry. He targeted the Muslim urban middle class. He looked upon them as the important factor in the Muslim community. He established the Aligarh University, the Aligarh Muslim University. So it was primarily for Muslims.
This was the first university Muslims had ever had
in India.
Achha.
In India. In that context, I may say so that to the best of my knowledge, the British rulers, some of them did establish madrasas in Delhi, but nothing like a university. The Muslim rulers, in fact, historically did not emphasize education, intellectual development and education. It was marginal, not a program or an objective of the British rulers. Of course, they patronized educated Muslims in the court or in the administration, particularly in the matter of revenues, but certainly not contemporary knowledge. At that time, a renaissance was already brewing in Europe. The Muslims were, rulers were no part of that. This was the context. So in which Sir Syed wanted to introduce major changes in, I repeat, in the Muslim urban middle class. To that end, Sir Syed's paradigm was that improve your own material condition and achieve material success. That should be your target. And he certainly in the process emphasized new thinking in Muslims, which brought them closer to the British, adopting their manners and their thinking and their culture, so as to come closer to the British and to be more trusted by them. He did want the Muslims to qualify in all respects so that the British would trust them. I think the main theme of Sir Syed's message was that improve your standard of living, your personal standard of living, not the communities. Okay. He wanted a Muslim community to emerge, but to create that new community of Muslims who would be quote-unquote modern and pro-British. He was emphasizing upon the Muslim individual.
Very interesting, very interesting.
From a particular strata. which he believed had the potential
To build a community, maybe.
to build a community and to make a place for themselves in the new India, in British India, to make a place. So that is why he preached that bring light in your house first.
अपने घर का दिया जला, अपने घर में दिया.
And then in the mosque. So that is the mindset that came out of the Aligarh University. Let me mention one more feature about the Aligarh Muslim University. There were many universities in India. There was a Banaras Hindu University in Banaras. There was Allahabad University, and there were universities in the south of India all over, which the British did. The point I wanted to mention was that of the universities, the standards, the educational standards of the Aligarh Muslim University was one of the lowest. It was one of the least respected universities, and a degree from the Aligarh Muslim University was symbolic of mediocrity, intellectual and educational. But Sir Syed's plan was numbers. He wanted more and more Muslims to qualify and get the BA degree so that they could compete in examinations, particularly for services. So lots of Muslim youth from middle class families and rural areas did go to the Aligarh Muslim University because it was seen as a comfortable environment for the backward Muslims, socially backward Muslims. It was a relatively comfortable environment. They did not have strict or high intellectual scholarship criteria for admission and for examinations, etc. I thought it worth mentioning.
I never knew this.
Aligarh Muslim University was one of the lowest, the culture and mindset which emerged in this Muslim community, the middle class followers of Sir Syed, was number one, loyalty to the British, and loyalty included imitating them. Their reference point of their way of life and way of thinking was the British in India, not Britain, the British in England.
So on this note, when you say the imitating of the British, ruling British and the Britishers of India, Lord Macaulay's address, which was all about not just for Muslims, but the general tactic upon which...
You remember Macaulay's address? Yes. So do I. Yeah. You were quite right.
Yeah. So I'm trying to understand that. So obviously this was way prior to Sir Syed's...
not way back. A little back.
So Sir Syed obviously...
Sir Syed was also a product of Macaulay.
Ji, that's what I'm saying. So Sir Syed was subscribing to
Remember Macaulay said, make them lose their self-respect. The Hindus were already under the Muslim rule, so it was quite natural for them to seek escape from Muslim rule into the British arms, into the arms of the British rule.
That's what I was trying to connect. With Sir Syed, the page actually kind of turns into this.
Quite right.
The new mindset.
So you and I are products of Sir Syed. And your father and grandfather and my father and grandfather were products of Sir Syed. And in 47, when they come here, that is the mind they bring with them, the mindset they bring with them.